So, good afternoon, everybody. It is so wonderful to be here with you today. Happy Monday. I know that's all relative right now, but I hope that if you are here listening to me, joining us today, then you are safe and healthy. And that is about as much as we can ask for at this current moment. My name is Rebecca Selko. I am the financial wellness counselor with the Actors Fund in New York City. I also have a private financial wellness practice. I'm a musician, I'm a classical singer and a flutist, and I also happen to be an attorney. So, looking for the silver linings amid COVID-19, I am extremely grateful and humbled and honored to be able to put all those skills together and put all my knowledge together and be able to be of service and hopefully a source of information and support for you during this time. There is a lot out there about this crisis, the economic aspects of it, certainly the health aspects of it, and certainly many other things as well. With respect to the financial pieces of this, how COVID has impacted our economy and us as individuals, so on the macro level and a micro level, the information is changing constantly and very rapidly, day to day. I teach this weekly at the Actors Fund, and I do that because every week there is something new to share, something that's changed from last week, and you'll see I have some updates in here even from Friday. Ooh, somebody is scribbling on my screen. That's very interesting. Am I doing that, or is that just happening? That's very odd. The guidance for a lot of the things that I'll be talking about today is being developed in real time. Some of the questions literally no answers. When it comes to our finances, though, there's a lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda on a good day. I think we can all agree on that, right? We have, just to talk about all the negative things, we have regret, we have guilt, we have shame, we have panic, we have fear. If you want to type in the chat some of the things that you're feeling right now, a lot of those things have been kicked into crisis mode amid this real life health and economic crisis. And not everybody and not in every way, right? But there is a lot of those things that have been out there before are just magnified, right, amid this crisis. So whatever you're feeling, and maybe it's some of those negative things I shared, maybe it's positive things and you feel guilty about feeling positive things, or you just feel positive things, or you feel something different minute to minute, and all the same time, what I would invite you to do is acknowledge the feelings, whatever they happen to be. This is the wellness part of financial wellness counselor. Acknowledge the feelings. Don't, to the best of your ability, let the emotions take over, but feel them, right? Allow them to have space and to have their place. All we can ask from ourselves right now is to just focus on forward movement. We can celebrate every step, whether it's a big step or a very, very tiny one. And those steps include the one that you took this afternoon or this morning, wherever you happen to be joining us from today, to spend the time focusing on your financial health. So financial wellness amid COVID-19 looks a little something like this. Financial wellness is a process, right? So I always say this. Financial wellness is a process. It's a process that involves 3 steps. The steps are intention, attention, action. And those break down to, what do I want? What is my plan? And then what do I need in order to make it happen? That process, right? That intention, attention, action process, that is not changing, even though our numbers most assuredly have, and maybe even our plans most assuredly have, right? So we're looking at a couple of things very specifically. We're looking at what's coming in, what's going out, and then what happens when there's a gap between those 2 things, right? That's it, whether that's a positive gap or a negative gap, right? What's coming in, what's going out, what do I do once I figure out those numbers? That process is the same as well, right? It's just that the situation has changed. The options have changed. And we have to go through it a lot faster, right? Because we've got to figure out what we're doing right now. right? We're in a crisis. What am I going to do in this crisis? How am I going to figure this out today, this month, right? This week. So we have new and expanded ways in which money is flowing in, right? We have also eliminated some of the ways that money is flowing in, at least for right now, and it remains to be seen what will happen, right? We've also started to adjust, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, when and how we spend the money that we have coming in, or don't, for that matter. And there are new penalties and fewer penalties in some cases, and different consequences for when there is a gap between those two things. So now we have to maybe change our assessments of what we prioritize, right? When there is that gap. And we're looking at right now, we are looking at the next few months, and we are looking at the long term. Right? So we always are doing that, but we're doing it with a different eye and with different parameters. So for every option that you are presented with or that you can generate, you're asking a few things. And maybe you can even write these down, because I think these are really good questions to be asking. So if you have well, of course I think so, I came up with them. If you have a writing implement, I invite you to write these down and think about these, right? So for each option, you're going to ask, one, is this a viable option? Two, and do the things that you see here on the slide. Reduce my expenses or increase or replace my income. By how much will it increase my income or reduce my expenses? For how long will it increase my income or reduce my expenses? What do I need to do to get it, right, to have access to it? And then when and how am I actually going to take the steps to do those things? And I know with all of you here with me today, and there are so many of you, and it's a beautiful thing to see so many of you focusing on your financial health right now, even though I know that even that may not feel totally voluntary. I invite you to really honestly assess your situation. Take what you need, right? There is assistance being offered, whether financially or otherwise, right? So if you are in need, then accept, right? Accept the help that's being given to you, right? And if you are not able to, or you don't feel like you can, you feel like it's for someone else, make sure that that's coming from an honest place and not a place of fear or guilt or shame or any of those things, right? But rather like, I really don't need right now, and so I'm going to not take right now. But make sure, again, you're being really honest about that, because if you qualify for some sort of assistance that's being offered, then it was designed for you. So look into accepting it. On the other hand, if you are in a position to give, and whatever that position might look like, again, financially or otherwise, then I would also invite you to really look at that honestly and give what you can. And that may be financial, it may not be financial. So we're always trying to take, and you have to give yourself permission, right, to be able to take, and give yourself permission to give. I'm going to be talking through each of those things now, right? The relief to increase and replace income, and the relief to reduce expenses. And I'm going to talk about each of those things in some detail. I know I'm not looking at the chat, so I can't see, but I would verily assume that there are a lot of questions already coming in. Maybe you came here, you're like, I don't even care about this presentation. I just have to ask my question. So I invite you to share those questions, but just know that I'm not looking at them. So hopefully you'll get some of the information that you seek from what I share. And if you still feel like the question's not been answered, or you would like to ask some follow-up, then that is what Melissa will be monitoring and moderating for us at the end. So I'm going to talk through the replacing and increasing income, and then reducing expenses, and then putting it together, right, to manage your cash flow. So relief to increase and replace income comes in a few forms right now. It comes in the form of unemployment. It comes in the form of economic impact payments or stimulus checks. And I use the air quotes because sometimes they're just direct deposits. So stimulus money. It comes in the form of emergency financial assistance and grants. And then there's this catch-all of other sources. So I'm going to talk through each of these in detail. For many of these by now, right, I hope that they are at least somewhat familiar to you. you, maybe even intimately familiar to you. Maybe you've already been there, done that, like when's the next one? For others of you, you're like, I've been hearing about this, but I haven't been sure what to do, or I've been hearing about this, but I've been doing 8 million other things. So we're going to look at each of these in detail to make sure that everybody is on the same page, and then you know enough to be able to ask the right questions and go forward and hopefully get access to some of these if they apply to you. The first one I would like to talk about is unemployment. So there was this wonderful thing, and again, I may or may not be using the term loosely, but there was a thing that was called the CARES Act and the Coronavirus Aid and Relief Act, and it did 3 things. It expanded unemployment in 3 ways. And also, I just want to point out here that when I first started teaching this seminar, 6.6 million people had applied for unemployment. The next week that I taught it, it was up to 10. Then I taught it, and it was 16. Now we're up to 22 million and counting, right? And so I say that so that we can put some of the frustrations that we're having with the process in context. The system was not set up for this, right? I say this sometimes when I'm teaching the financial wellness in quote normal times. I say the system wasn't set up for you, right? The system was set up for one W-2. Well, here's the same thing. So unemployment was kind of set up for one W-2. Now employment's been expanded, and the system of unemployment was not set up for all of these things that it's now trying to accomplish. So we do need to practice patience, and we need to understand what it is that we can get from this. Okay, so unemployment. The CARES Act did 3 things. Expanded eligibility to independent contractors, freelancers, part-time workers. And that is called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, so PUA. So previously, only employees, only people who were being paid on a W-2 basis could access unemployment. Now, independent contractors, freelancers, part-time workers, 1099, people who are paid with 1099 folks can also access unemployment under PUA. And that's what they're receiving as PUA. So if you hear those things, that's what it is. There's also an amount by which it was expanded. So previously, unemployment was designed to tide workers over while they were looking for a job, right? So you actually have to certify, I'm looking for a job right now. I'm ready and willing and able to work, and I just haven't found work yet. Thank you very much for bridging this gap, right, between employment positions. And I'm assuming that most, if not all of you, are aware of that. Well, what PUC did, what the CARES Act did by adding this Pandemic Unemployment Compensation, or PUC, is increase the amount that everybody could get. So now you get whatever you would have gotten, right, from the state based on your eligibility, and a flat $600 per week. And this is through July 31st, 2020, and it backdates as well. And that is $600 flat. So unemployment, the amount that you get is a range. There's a minimum, a maximum, which I'm going to talk about. So minimum and maximum. This is a flat 600. So it is designed to help people actually replace their income and not just tide you over. Coverage is extended by 13 weeks. Oh, so I was going to say that in some cases, you may find yourself actually receiving more from unemployment than you were making, right? That is because the $600 is a flat amount, and that's PUC. Coverage has also been extended by 13 weeks. So previously you could collect unemployment in New York for 26 weeks. Now, whatever the maximum was for the state that you're in, there's an extra 13 weeks tacked onto that. And that is Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, or PEUC. There's also no waiting period, and they've relaxed the requirement that you be searching for work, because you know that most people may be searching, but they're not going to find, and like, what is the point? In some cases, not all cases. So they've relaxed that requirement to be searching for work. So those, if you hear those terms bandied about, PUA, PUC, PUC, that's what it's referring to. So more people can get it, more different types of workers can get it. They can get more money, and they can get it for more time. In New York specifically, there is the same website for traditional unemployment and PUA. So you apply the same way. Claims can be filed online. from 7:30 in the morning until 7:30 in the evening. And there is updated guidance. This is as of, so I was saying new, like as of, so April 10th, I taught this, then April 17th, and now it's April 20th. So since then, there's been updated guidance as far as what to do and how to apply. And this is the website for it. I'm assuming hopefully Melissa can get out that link to you, or maybe even somebody can type it in the chat so you can copy paste it. But it's this long website. The Department of Labor seems to be working. I don't know, right? I don't work there, but it seems that they are really working, probably literally overtime, to try to make sure that when guidance is available, people have access to it, right? And so this is supposed to be user-friendly. If you can't find it, it may be that it's not there, but certainly see if you can and see if that helps answer some of your questions. You're applying for this on the same website, through the same portal. What my understanding is now that when you apply, you are supposed to get a call within 72 hours. So it was the case as of when I taught this on between April 3rd and April 10th, they updated the website. So it was previously that you had to be on the phone. Now you apply online, everything is handled online, and you're supposed to get a call back. Supposed to. If you haven't gotten the call back, it doesn't necessarily mean that you did anything wrong. It just means that maybe they haven't gotten a chance to call you back. The minimum benefit in New York is $104 a week. The maximum benefit is $504 a week. So you have to have made enough to be able to get that minimum benefit. If you made more than however how they're calculating it, then you would get the $504 a week. And actually, this is not on my slide, but I think it bears mentioning. And again, I don't know if you know this. Hopefully you do, but if you don't, then hopefully this will be helpful, that you only can apply for unemployment in one state, and it's usually the state in which you worked. If you worked and earned income in multiple states, you need to pick one. If you pick multiple, then you can get blacklisted, right, in the states, because you can't dip from unemployment pools in multiple states. You would want to apply in the state in which you would get the highest benefit. So New York is $504. If you earned income in another state for which the maximum is higher, you may want to apply in that state. You get to use the income from all of the states for purposes of calculating the benefit, but you're only actually submitting an application in one state. I hope that makes sense. I hope that is clear. Apply. And so if you've made only a little bit in one state and you're not making enough to make the minimum in that state, then maybe you'd want to apply in another state. So look at minimums, look at maximums, choose a state, and then go for it. If you are ineligible for unemployment, for traditional unemployment, you may still be able to collect the PUC, Pandemic Unemployment Compensation, of $600 a week. So apply, right? Apply, and they may be giving out the W-2 first, and it's going to take a little while for the 1099 to kick in. You have to be applying for the W-2 first and get denied for that before you can get the PUA, right? The 1099 unemployment. So apply, apply, apply. You still may be able to get the PUC. I'm going to talk next. Oh, wait, hold on. No, I'm not going to talk next about that. I want to say a couple more things about unemployment. So patience, please. Patience, 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 right? Do your best. And then when you feel a little stuck, here are some things that you can ask yourself to see how you can navigate through. So besides like the concrete questions that you may have, one is, do I need more information, and where can I get it, right? So who would be the best person versus a person, right, that I can ask, right? Who's the best person to whom I have access, or what's the best resource to which I have access to get the answer to this question or these questions or this information that I need? The second is, do I need to know the answer to this, or do I just want to know the answer to this? And sometimes our anxiety about, and especially in this case, I don't know when it's coming, I don't know how much it is, I don't know. Do I need to know that, or do I just want to know that? And I'm not judging, I don't know, right? But asking that, because anxiety can really trick us into panicking, and even sometimes paralyze us, right? So we want to be very mindful as to, maybe I just want to know this, but I have to be patient, right? I have to wait and see. I want to know right now, but maybe I just need to wait. Another question, if I screw this up, can I fix it? right? If I make a mistake on my application, will I be able to fix it, right? And how, right? So sometimes knowing that, you know what, this is fixable, right? I can file an appeal. If it turns out that I'm owed more money, like I should be able to get it, right? So that can sometimes calm us down when we get like, panicking and anxious when we're trying to fill out paperwork and get access to things. And then final question, what are my options if this doesn't work out, right? What's my plan B? So ask all of those questions as you're going through this process. I know those are, again, that's like the wellness part. So that's not the financial part, but that's the wellness part of this. 3 resources that I can mention to you, and you can feel free to Google these. Again, I don't know if there's a way that we can get links to you, but 3 resources right now in New York. Volunteers of Legal Services, VOLS, has restarted its Unemployed Workers Project to try to help people get questions answered. Community Service Society, also CSS, is working with individuals one-on-one to try to address and help with unemployment applications. And the law firm Arnold and Porter, which is a corporate law firm, is doing some pro bono work in this area. So you can reach out to them in one of, I think it's 4 or 5 different cities, depending on where you are. And potentially, right, this is not designed to be like an emergency resource because they'll do some vetting, but potentially be matched up with a pro bono attorney who can assist you. Okay, so that is what I wanted to tell you about unemployment. The next thing I want to talk about is economic impact payments, or the stimulus payments. So some of you may have received these already. Some of you may be feeling like you're in limbo about them. Some of you are like, wait, what's that? So let's talk about these. The economic impact payments are one-time tax-free payments from the IRS. Technically, this is a tax credit that you are getting early. So it is not taxable income. You are eligible to receive $1,200 as an adult. And if you are an adult with children, you get an additional $500 per child, and that's even in the household. So if you have 2 adults living in the household, you each get $1,200. This starts to phase out, right? So it starts to phase out at $75,000 or less if you are single. So if you, it phases out above that. So if you earn $75,000 or less as a single person, then you would be eligible for the full amount. If you earn $150,000 or less as a joint filer, and this is based on your taxes, then you would also get the full amount. And it starts to phase out at 99, it phases out completely. It starts to phase out above 75,000. It phases out completely at $99,000 for a single person and $198,000 for married filing jointly. Automatic payments have actually started. So this is new. I couldn't believe it was true, but it is true. So people are receiving them. In order to receive the money now, you need to have filed your 2018 or 2019 tax return. Right? So, and I want to be very clear about this, and I want you to be too. The payment is automatic. You should need to do nothing other than have filed your tax return. If you have not yet filed 2019, then it is going to be based off, and you haven't gotten the payment yet, then it may be based off of your 2008, it will be based off of your 2018 returns. If you filed a 2019 return and you filed it already, then the payment may be based off of the 2019 return. So that is to get the money now. Now, please be aware that just because you haven't filed yet doesn't mean that you're like not going to get it, right? It means that you will just need to wait, right? So you may get it when you file it. You may get it when you file your 2020 return in 2021, because again, this is an advance on a tax credit that's available to you in 2020. If you had a better situation for purposes of this, and maybe you earned more in 2019, so you want to get more, then maybe just don't file your 2019 taxes yet and have it based off the 2018. My understanding is that there is not going to be any clawback, right? So you'll get all the money to which you're entitled, but there's not going to be any clawback provision. If they find out that you made more in 2019, they're not going to take the money back from you if it was based on your 2018 return. So just be aware of that. Visit irs.gov and then navigate to Get Coronavirus Tax Relief for more information about this. They finally updated the website. So there is a lot more info out there. There's some very helpful helpful chart that helps you understand what you might be eligible for, when you might get it, what to do, how to update your information, which is really great. So I'm not replicating that here. Go to this website. Have a couple screenshots of this. So this is irs.gov. Navigate on the side there to economic impact payments. And then it's giving you a couple of options to see if you're eligible for that EIP. And then if you're eligible, use the guide. Now, I know that because I've been hearing this, that people have been saying they try to figure out what they're getting, and they're getting a message that sounds very negative. That's my eligibility cannot be determined at this time, or something to that effect, right? So that's not the same. And please, this kind of goes back to the unemployment questions. Like this does not mean that you are not eligible. It just means that they don't have information at this time. So you should rest, and I try not to should on people, but I really want to should on you right now and say that you should rest assured, if you can, or try to take a few deep breaths. This is supposed to happen, right? It may be that you don't get the money now. It may be that you're not getting the money until 2020. I don't even get it then we have a problem. But for right now, patience. I know that is a really unpleasant thing to say when you're trying to figure out, in some cases, how you're going to pay for things that you need to pay for next month, right? But unfortunately, there's nothing we can do to make this process go any faster. I used to host karaoke, and if anybody out there also is a karaoke host, you know that like asking the host over and over, like, well, is it my turn yet? When's my song coming up? When's my song coming up? When's my song coming up? Doesn't necessarily make your song come up any faster, right? Unfortunately, in this case. So you can ask, but in some cases, we just have to wait, and it stinks, right? It really does. But that is the best that in many cases we can do right now. So gather as much information as you can, read what there is to read. If you're like, well, filed my 2018, filed my 2019, would love to know how much I'm getting. Doesn't seem like the portal's been updated, so I don't know, right? I don't know which tax return they're using. I don't know if my kid's going to be counted, right? Because maybe they're in the cusp of I don't know. We'll just wait and see, right? In some cases, that is the absolute best we can do, and it's not pleasant to say that or to do that, but sometimes this right now is the best advice that I can give you. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about here is emergency financial assistance. So these are grants. So we talked about unemployment. We talked about the economic impact payments. Now we're going to talk about grants. Your eligibility for these will vary. So you need to meet the qualifying criteria. Grants, one-time payment doesn't need to be paid back. In most cases, meet qualifying criteria, demonstrate financial need. So Melissa and I were chatting. The information about emergency financial assistance from SAG Foundation is available on the website. Melissa, if you are there and you want to chime in now, it will be a super cool time. Otherwise, I will go at it. Would you
Sure.
like to? Yeah,
Sure,
cool.
no
Okay, Melissa,
problem.
we'll talk to you about it.
Let me just share my video. Hi, y'all. And just to say sorry again, apologies. I'm not sure what happened with the website, and we had sent you all the invite, and some people didn't get it. So I really appreciate your patience with that. I know that was probably frustrating, but I'm glad you all made it here. I said it as well in the chat. We are filming this event, so we will send you all this information. So you'll also have these slides, and you can go back and revisit, because I know this is a lot of information. As far as the foundation, what I can tell you, so that everything that I'm going to say is on our website, and I'll put it right now in the chat as well, as we have a pretty good FAQ page. I also included those in with the email that provided the link for this discussion. So to be eligible for the COVID Relief Fund, you currently have to be active and paid up on your dues through October 2019. This fund is supposed to support members who are unable to pay their basic living expenses like rent, mortgage, utilities, medical bills over the next 2 months. These funds are being administered through the Actors Fund, and all applications are confidential, anonymous. Currently, just to say, Rebecca was saying that there's a huge backlog of these requests. So we've been getting thousands of requests. And right now, my understanding is the applications are taking about 2 to 3 weeks to process. So again, it's a patience game because of the volume. The application, like I said, I gave you the application link, but know that, so as of March 16th, the foundation has given over $2 million to 2,000 actors. So we're every day working very hard to support more folks. And so, like I said, I'll send you those links right now in the chat so you have them handy.
Thank you so much. And this kind of goes back to what I said very early on, well, very early, maybe like 20 minutes ago, but very early on in our time together this afternoon about asking for what you need, right? Take what you need. And so if you need and you meet the qualifying criteria, then this isn't a time to say I don't deserve this, or I didn't do enough, or I'm not good enough, or anything like that. So this is definitely a time this is being offered. So if you qualify, you have need, then this is why you should apply, right? It was designed for that purpose, and so help is out there for you to receive. Other income sources I'm going to talk about now. So SBA loans are the first. I don't like talking about this personally because one, it's confusing. So just so you know what's going on in my mind as I talk about this, it's confusing. One, that's not really the problem that I have with it though. The challenge with these loans is that really, we're trying, well, not we, but square pegs are trying to be fit into round holes. And we could say that there was an opportunity to create some square holes, and the holes are still pretty round. So we've got some round holes, and we're trying to fit square pegs into them, and it is what it is. So maybe they'll be square next time, or maybe this is what's going to keep happening and keep it going on. But the best we can do is try to understand our square pegs and understand these round holes and try to fit them together. So I'm giving a brief framework and overview here. Hopefully this is enough to ask questions and seek out the information. So SBA loans. So there are two types. There are the Paycheck Protection Program loans, and then the Economic Injury and Disaster loans. So PPP and EIDL, and Small Business Administration, abbreviated SBA. With PPP loans, Debbie Downer moment here. The funds have been exhausted. Womp womp. Many of you have probably heard this already. They knew this would happen, and it did. So this was open to sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed for less than a week before the money ran out. But it may be extended. Right? So it's good to know as much as you can so that you can pounce when and if that happens. And just before we started talking, so unless this has happened in the last half hour, just before we logged on today, I read that there are discussions about funding this more, and actually funding it even more than it was funded the first time. So learn as much as you can now so that when and if it opens up again or there's more funding, you can pounce on it if it's applicable to you. PPP loans are loans, right? It's a loan at 1% interest, so it was more, and then they reduced it. These loans are forgivable, meaning you don't have to pay them back if they're used for certain types of expenses. Then the type of expense that the main one is in the name, payroll, right? So if it's used for payroll, rent, interest on mortgage, utilities, right? Things like that. We're not sure yet how forgiveness will work, but that is the theory. These loans are backed by the Small Business Administration, the SBA, but you apply through a private lender, and the private lender is a bank, and the bank, generally speaking, needs to be one with which you already have an existing business relationship. So if you have a personal bank account, that's not what they're looking for. Generally, you have to have a business bank account with them, like blah, blah, business checking, something like that. The amount that you can get under a PPP loan is 2.5 times the average monthly payroll cost, and they're basing that off of whatever was reported on the Schedule C of your tax returns for 2019 or possibly 2018. So this is something to check with your tax preparer about. Or the bank. So for example, if you had $12,000 in 1099 income, then that's an average of $1,000 a month, right? So we take 12,000 divided by 12, it's $1,000 a month average. So So 2.5 times that means that you would be eligible for a $2,500 loan. The max under the PPP program is about $20,000 and change. And that's for people who are earning $100,000 or more in that self-employment, independent contractor, sole proprietor income. If you earn over 100,000, it's still the same max. So you can't get a loan for more than that. You cannot get a PPP loan and unemployment, so that PUA, right? So you can't get both. So highly recommended to run the numbers and see which one is going to give you more money and then go for that one. If you need the money right now, because again, PPP loans are not currently being funded, so the most banks are not accepting new applications, then it's pretty much unemployment insurance or bust, right? So go with that. But again, highly, highly, highly encourage you to be working with a tax professional, so that they can help run numbers with you. You can talk to the bank. They may be able to help run numbers with you too, but talk to the tax professional, see what numbers make sense, see which one to go for, and go from there. The other loan it's like similar but different. So the other loan available to sole proprietors, independent contractors, again, square peg round hole. It's like, but wait, so as a sole proprietor, I am eligible for a business loan, but I'm my own payroll. Yes, right? That's it, right? I kept trying to find more information. That's it, right? That's it. So you pay yourself, that payroll, that's what it's covering. EIDL, emergency emergency economic injury grants and EIDLs. So these have been around for a long time, EIDLs, but there's a new twist to them. So these are also a loan. It's a loan at 3.75% interest. So here's the sort of twist on the square peg round hole. So the twist to this is that the first $10,000 is a grant if, when you apply, you mark the box saying you want an advance of $10,000. So it's a loan, and you can get many, many multiples of that, but the first $10,000 is a grant, but you have to take it as an advance. And in theory, you get that grant money right away, even if the rest of the application is denied. Curious, right? If you can see my face and you're not on the phone, I'm making some interesting faces, but that is the deal, right? So you apply through the Small Business Administration directly, so no banks, no middlemen involved here. From what I understand, and if this is not correct, I want someone to tell me. I've been saying this is what I understand, this is what I've heard. If it is not right, someone's gotten an anecdote, someone's got a story or an experience, please share it. My understanding is that you can get both a payroll protection program loan and EIDL, but you can't use them for the same category of expenses. So if and when you apply for any of these loans, right, and you may even be able to get unemployment and one of these if you have W-2 income and 1099 income, right? Get the unemployment based on the W-2 income, get the 1099 income, get the EIDL or PPP based off the 1099 income, right? So that may be possible. Run those numbers, right? Don't do anything that's going to hurt your chances of getting either one, right? Now, when and if you get this money, the recommendation is to put any of it into a separate business bank account and document the heck out of how you use it, right? Because you don't want this as a loan. You want it to be either forgiven or you want to make sure that this grant stands, right? So document the heck out of it. Don't commingle funds, right? Don't just like dump it in your personal checking and then use it for whatever. Don't use any of these things to pay for the same categories of expenses, right? And again, have I said this enough times? Work with a tax professional. Pretty please. Other income sources, earnings, right? Can you make more money? So these are loans, grants, and unemployment and economic impact payments. Can you make more money? Is there some way that you can generate income right now, whether it's W-2 or 1099 through a job or through independent contractor or other sorts of income? Are you eligible for sick pay and or New York paid family leave, right? Because you are still employed, but you are not able to work because you are taking care of yourself or a sick family member or a child whose school has been closed because of COVID. So lots of ways in which PFL and sick pay have been expanded in New York. So maybe worth looking into and exploring. And then a last income source that I will mention here, just gifts and loans from friends and family. Is somebody able to offer you financial support right now? If you're comfortable asking or you're comfortable receiving, then that can be an option to expand your income. Reducing expenses is the flip side. So all of that was just options to increase your income. Here are some things that you can do to try to reduce your expenses and some relief that is being offered to try to help reduce your expenses. Again, we're looking at right now, right? Like the immediate, like what can I do? And we're looking at long term and even like next month and the month after, right? What can I do? So rent, mortgage, utilities, student loans, credit card debt, other types of debt and additional relief, that's what I'm going to be talking about. For rent and mortgage, so for rent, there's been a 90-day suspension, and this is in New York, of evictions. There's no fees or penalties if you pay your rent late or if you don't pay, but the arrears will remain right now, so far. Right? Balloon payments are not allowed so far, which means that at the end of the 3 months, the landlord cannot demand that now you have to pay all of the 3 months of rent or else you'll be kicked out. Rather than not paying, right? When you start to think about what can I pay now, what can I put off, rather than just straight up not paying, it is highly encouraged that you explore your options with your landlord first, right? Make sure that you've exhausted those and your landlord is just not doing anything for you before you say, okay, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I can't be kicked out right now and I will deal with it later, right? And this is not advice that I would normally give, right? This is COVID advice. This is what we're trying to do right now. This is some relief that's being offered to you. If you are trying to decide between food, right, and your health, and then it's your rent payment, maybe you have to allocate your priorities differently than you would otherwise because of this form of relief that's being offered. And I put stay tuned here because, again, there's a lot of advocacy being done around this, right? A lot. So if you're in this situation, well, what happens in 3 months? Are they going to kick me out? I can't afford the 3 months now, so I'm not going to be able to afford it then, right? So what do I do? Then this is the stay tuned. A lot of advocacy around this. Hopefully we will see additional changes, but stay tuned. We don't know. For mortgages, right? So if you own and you have a mortgage, there may be a possibility, although the banks have no obligation yet to offer this, to defer your payments. So check with your bank, see what they're willing to do for you. They're basically putting a pause, right? They're hitting pause on the payments and they'll just restart them. So you're not getting any portion of the mortgage forgiven, right? You're not eliminating any of the interest. It's just the 3 payments will be tacked on to the end of the mortgage. For utilities, there's been no official mandate yet, but many have suspended collection activities. What is a collection activity when it comes to a utility? Oh, we'll shut off their gas. We'll shut off their electricity. We'll shut off their internet. Then they'll pay up, right? So they're not allowed to do that. If you don't pay, or sorry, they are allowed to, but they're not doing it, right? So if you check the website of your provider, they should be suspending the collection activity. So if you don't pay, then they're not going to shut off your service. But again, before deciding that this is the method, and I'm not suggesting that you not do this or do this, there's absolutely no judgment in any of this, explore the payment assistance, right? See if there's something they can offer you. Be much better for them to say, you know, okay, you don't have to pay at all for the next 3 months, rather than, oh, we'll just pause your payments and then you're going to have to figure it out, you know, when we come back to some semblance of normal. So just explore the payment assistance and don't just not pay. Student loans, really excited is maybe the wrong word, but it is nice to talk about this because something really effective has been done. With federal direct student loans, there is an automatic administrative forbearance in place right now. That means that no payments are due until September 30th, so 6 months so far. Interest is not accruing, which is a big deal, and it's automatic, so nothing that you need to do. Now, if you have student loans and you have noticed, and you check with your servicer and you've noticed that they are not in an automatic administrative forbearance right now, then one of 2 things has likely happened. So one is that your servicer made a mistake, in which case you do need to contact them. The other thing that may have happened is that you have the wrong kind of loan. So pay very close attention to these words. It applies only to federal direct loans. So that's Stafford loans held by the DOE, Parent Plus, Grad Plus, consolidation loans held by the Department of Ed. If you have other kinds of federal loans, there are other kinds. So other kinds of non-DOE held federal loans include Perkins loans issued by the school and these fun things called FFELP loans. Now, if you took out your student loans, if you're old like me and you took out your student loans prior to 2010, it used to be the case that student loans were actually issued by a private lender and backed by the federal government. That is not the case anymore. Now the federal government issues them directly. So if you have one of those, sometimes people consolidated their loans into direct loans, in which case you're good, right, for this purpose. But if you still have one of those older loans, right, from 2010 or prior, then, and it's an FFELP loan, like it says federal, but it doesn't say direct, then it is not covered under this program. And private loans also, Wild Wild West, on a good day, right? So private loans are also not covered under this automatic administrative forbearance. But there are some things you can do and some things I want you to take note of. So one is beware of scams. There's no fee to suspend your payments. There's no action required of you. You don't have to pay anyone who's going to do this for you. It should happen automatically if you have federal direct loans. But you can, right? Let's say you don't have the right kind of loan. You have FFELP loans. You can look into, and even with direct loans, you can do this. Look into income-driven repayment plans, IDR plans. It is possible that if you've experienced a loss in income or reduction in income, that your payment may drop all the way down to zero or something that's more affordable. If you're in an income-driven repayment plan, and that's IBR, that's pay as you earn, that's income contingent repayment, any type of payment plan that is calculated based on how much you earn, you are working towards eventual loan forgiveness, right? And maybe in 15, 20, 25 years, but you're working towards eventual loan forgiveness. And any suspended payments or any $0 payments count towards the minimum number of payments that's required to get that loan forgiveness. So forbearance is an option, right? And I'm not talking about the automatic forbearance here. A lot of times you're like, I can't afford my payments. They're going to give me a forbearance, right? That's good, right? That may be the best option. But if you can, because it's for a loss of income, if you can enroll in an income-driven repayment plan, that is usually a better option. So if you're enrolled in IDR already, you can even ask them to recalculate the monthly payment in addition to suspending your payments and interest, because why not? If you have questions about student loans or you'd like support about student loans, there's a wonderful resource in New York City called the Education Debt Consumer Assistance Program, EdCap, which is a program of the Community Service Society. And I mentioned already that they are helping also individuals with student loans, with unemployment. So they're also helping individuals with student loans. So you can actually work with somebody one-on-one and talk to them, ask them your questions about your student loans. And it is a nonprofit. They're not charging you for this. And you can see if perhaps they can help you access the best option for you. Credit cards. The credit cards are not specifically mandated to do anything yet either, but if you're looking to reduce the amount that you pay towards your credit cards, here's some things that you may be able to get. So one is waiving or lowering fees. And these are in order of best to, I wouldn't say worst, but best to, this is still a decent option, I suppose, but not the best. So waiving or lowering fees, don't have to pay them. Reduce them, right? They're gone, right? Suppressing interest, meaning you don't have to pay the interest at all, right? Interest is not being charged to you. That is better than reducing the interest rate, which is also good. But actually reducing the interest rate and suppressing it would be the best, right? If they're going to not charge you interest for a few cycles and lower it, right, when it comes back, that would be ideal, right? Well, ideal. In an ideal world, you wouldn't have any debt at all. That would be great. But reducing the interest rate. The next things that they may offer you, lowering the minimum payment, pausing or deferring or extended your due date. So this is kind of the easiest thing for the credit card to do because they're not losing anything later, right? Just for right now. They're well, we're not going to charge you the minimum. You don't have to make a payment. You'll still be in good standing. But guess what? Interest is usually still compounding, right, on your credit card. And you may still have an issue. The debt's not going anywhere. So you may still have an issue with payment when the things change and you have to start making those payments again. The next few things they may offer you, increasing your credit limit or just saying, so you can borrow more and just saying, well, you know what, you're not paying, but we won't come after you. That's it, right? So best to worst, those are your best options. You'd need to contact each credit card issuer because they're all offering something different. You may be able to submit on an online request or chat with them. If you call, just expect long wait times. You're not doing anything wrong. Patience, patience, patience. Your eligibility for any of the programs they have may vary. So I don't want anyone thinking this is guaranteed, right? Your eligibility depending on your relationship as a customer. Some keywords to look for: financial relief, financial hardship, COVID-19 assistance, relief, coronavirus relief, et cetera, right? It seems like they all kind of got together and were like, we won't call it the same thing as anybody else, because I haven't actually seen, maybe you will, I haven't seen two credit cards calling it the same thing. So look for that, and you may be able to get it online. You may have to log in first before you can access it. You may have to call, right? It depends on the issuer. Just note again, please, that delayed payment does not equal forgiveness. So if the relief, the only thing you're being offered is, oh, well, don't make the payments for 3 months and we'll still compound the interest, but we won't charge you. Better than nothing, but that doesn't mean the debt's gone, right? So just be aware of that. But I say here, consider whether to prioritize paying off debt. And it's really interesting, again, time to be a financial wellness counselor, because this is not normally the advice that I would give, right? Normally, we're really looking hard at high interest debt and we're prioritizing that. And like when you get a little bit of money or a lot of money, right? Let's say you get a tax refund or you get your stimulus check, well, you pay off the high interest debt, right? Obviously, right? But right now, I would say if you have high interest debt or you have any kind of debt, holding pattern, right? Because if you pay, and it's really rare that I will give like kind of blanket advice like this, but you're getting it right now. So once you pay off the debt, you can't you can't get the money back, right? It's gone, right? So you don't know, and I put stay tuned here because we don't know what may happen as far as legislation in the next few months. I can think of lots of things that I could rattle off that would change how we approach debt, not the least of which being that the consequences for not paying would not be as dire in some cases as they are now, right? So stay tuned. Hang tight. If you've already used the money to pay off high interest debt, or you're like, I'm in a position to pay off some debt, and that's really what I want to do, right? Then you're okay, right? But just make sure that you've done an honest assessment of all of the things that are going to be coming up and all of the income that you might receive and the debt. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in a couple slides. So make sure you've done all of that and really come to like, this is the best possible thing I can do with my money right now. Once you give it to the credit card company, they're definitely not giving it back to you. So just be aware of that. There was something I was going to say, and honestly, I cannot remember if I said it. So I do want to mention this in case I didn't. And if I did, I'm so sorry. I had a brain freeze. But I wanted to talk about go back to the economic impact payments because it fits in here with the debt that until Saturday, the banks, so if you had a debt, right, to the bank because you had been in overdraft, the banks were able to garnish your stimulus payment if it was direct deposited. I really don't think I said this, but maybe I did. So they were able to garnish it. And as of Saturday, so this is what I mean about the information changing so rapidly. Saturday morning, guidance was issued by the Attorney General in New York that now banks cannot do this. Right? So now banks are not allowed to take any portion of your economic impact payment, your stimulus payment, and use it to pay overdraft fees. So you should be able, and that's also not subject to any garnishment or offsetting of any taxes that you owe by the IRS. You are supposed to get that money free and clear, and nobody's supposed to take anything of it. So other types of debt kind of fits in here anyway. Even if I did say it fits in again. Other types of debt, same deal. Contact each bank, lender, or servicer. Those are your options, right? You may be able to refinance the debt into a lower interest rate, something like that. Maybe the debt will be forgiven. What I say about all of this is there's no rush, right? Ask questions. Be as clear as possible about what you are asking for. And so there's a reason I spent kind of a while going through each of the different things that may be offered to you. And that's because the clearer you can be about what you're asking for, the more likely it is that you'll get it. So if you go out there and you say, well, I lost my job, right? I lost all my income due to COVID. I'm experiencing hardship. What can you do for me, right? That is potentially less effective than saying, I lost my income due to COVID. I would like you to suppress my interest for 3 cycles. I would like you to reduce my interest rate down to 0%. Why not? And I would like you to postpone and extend my time to repay for 6 months. Why not, right? See what they say, see what they offer you. So be very clear about that. And again, stay tuned because we may see changes to bankruptcy laws. We may see changes to how things are reported to the credit bureaus. We may see changes on the AG level, right, to how debt collections happen, right? So stay tuned. Don't make any rash decisions about high interest debt. Additional relief and assistance, just taxes. The deadline to file has been extended. Hopefully you all know that by now because April 15th already happened. So it's been extended to July. There should be no penalties or interest, even if you owe. Other kinds of relief and assistance to reduce expenses, right? If you are struggling to pay for food right now, and maybe this is like a situation in which you never, ever, ever could have imagined you would find yourself, right? Struggling to pay for food, there is food assistance available in New York and you have access to it. My understanding, and again, unless this has changed, it was the case that you can go to the public schools and every student in New York gets free breakfast and lunch, and they've expanded that to any New Yorker who is hungry can go to the school and get free breakfast or lunch, right? And it's to go, right? You don't sit in the cafeteria and eat it. Health and medical assistance, you may be able to get some relief as far as your premiums, rent arrears, and public assistance, and of course, mental health and emotional support. This is not the time to go at it alone, right? And so there are resources out there. Take what you need, right? Take what you need. And if you're in a position to give, right? Help somebody out. We're going to put all that together now and talk about managing cash flow. Managing cash flow is really about these two things that I've been talking about this whole time, which are income and expenses, right? What is coming in? What's going out? Before you start making decisions, because as humans, and maybe you have already, right? So before you continue making decisions, as humans confronted with a problem, a lot of times we just want to solve it, right? We want to fix it. We want to take some action to be in action. But remember, intention, attention, action. That's the process. Process hasn't changed just because we're in a crisis. So even if it goes faster, still make sure you go through the steps of those process. You're going to need some lists to start, right? When you're paying attention, get some big old lists or some small young lists going. So lists of expenses include a list of all your upcoming bills, right? Everything that you're expecting you may have due. You're not deciding whether you're going to pay it or what you're going to pay or not pay right now or how you can reduce it, just a list of all the bills. Then you're going to add any upcoming one-time expenses, right? So this may be if you've recently received a medical bill, it's now like, oh, I'm confronted with that. If you're like, my laptop is on its last legs, right? I'm going to have to deal with that. So you add to your list any upcoming one-time expenses that you expect. And we cannot plan for everything, but anything you expect right now. Then the third thing you're going to do as far as lists is gather information about your recent spending. Now, when I teach this in non-COVID times, I will suggest that you look at 6, even sometimes to 12 months of spending history to figure out what a good spending plan might be. Right now, we got to do the quick and dirty version. So you're reviewing 2 to 3 months of statements from all your accounts. You're assigning a category to every transaction that you see, and you're totaling all of those categories and dividing by 3 if you're looking at 3 months, 2 if you're dividing by 2 months to determine the average for that category. Now I know, right? I can't imagine that anyone in here is not experiencing this. I know that your spending has changed, right? Especially in most cases, our food expenses, right? How we're consuming food, very, very different right now. How we're paying for it, when we're shopping, how we're eating, changed. We want to ground this in the reality of the past, right? Because you still get a sense of who you are and how you spend looking at your spending history. So I would say conservatively, when you start putting together a spending plan, you're going to get to reduce the food amount, like when you figure out what you're spending, right? But you're not reducing it to 0, most likely. Maybe you are, right? But so maybe think about reducing it by 25% when you're figuring out how much you're going to spend going forward. That's why we want to have it grounded in a real number, right? So what were you spending in all these categories? Divide so that you get an average. On the income side, you're going to list, again, big old list or small young list all your expected income from all your sources by source. Just expect it, right? This person still owes me money. I'm still working part-time for that person. I'm still doing this thing. I still have this gig. It's just online now, right? So all your expected income from all sources by source. If you're thinking, well, Rebecca, like, I don't know, right? I could work 5 hours. I could work 50. I really don't know. It varies. What you can do is lock in a range, right? You can be realistic about a range. So you can say it's anywhere from 0 to 5,000. That might feel like a really big range, but it is a range nonetheless, right? So listing a range, you can do an average, right? But you're going to have some sort of list from all sources and by source. And then you're going to list any potential sources of income. A lot of those may be derived from what I shared with you already today, right? So if you've applied for unemployment, your application is in, you're just waiting, didn't get the call yet, like you're just waiting. Unemployment may be a potential source of income. And you could say it's anywhere from 0 to 1104. Right at this point, because that's the maximum, right? Maybe you can narrow it down a little bit more, right, within that. But list the potential sources of income. Note where more information is needed. Right? Maybe you're like, well, I'm pretty confident I'm going to get this for my W-2, or maybe I'm already getting that, but I haven't gotten the 1099. They haven't processed the PUA part of my employment application, or I haven't seen the $600 yet. It is, by the way, supposed to come automatically. If you're getting the $600, it is going to probably come as 2 deposits. If you're getting direct deposit, whatever your state unemployment is, and then an extra deposit of the $600. If it's less than that, it may be that the taxes are being withheld. Okay. So just note where more information is needed. And then you're going to have a big old list or a small young list of your debt, right? So everything that you owe, to whom or to what you owe it, how much you owe, what the interest rate is, and you're going to list your assets as well. This is an ugly time to be looking at your brokerage accounts and to be looking at your retirement accounts, but we still want to know. So if you have any of those savings accounts, right, look at all of the assets that you have and write the numbers down, right? So now you have some lists. What do you do with it? The next phase is to now start analyzing and making some decisions so that you have a plan. With expenses, you're going to look for ways to reduce your spending short term, right? Just right now, like what can I do right now? Are there any automatic reductions that are going to happen? Are some of them temporary, but it's good enough, like for right now, to my bills, right? To any of my regular expenses, including my debt payments, right? Can I get any relief there? Are there any changes that are going to happen automatically to my discretionary spending? Are there things I'm already doing that I'm noticing? My dining out category has drastically gone down, right? But my groceries shot way up, right? In many of our cases, that's what's happening. So you're going to also note expenses and categories that may increase, right? And then, of course, any relief and assistance that you may be able to tap into. On the income side, assess and generate some options to maximize your income. And that doesn't necessarily mean I've got to find as many jobs as possible, right? So, of course, earnings, but government support. What do I qualify for? What do I need to do to apply? All those questions I listed off at the beginning, right? Stimulus money. What do I expect? Anywhere from the range of 0 to, let's say I have 2 kids married filing jointly, like $3,400, right? So what am I expecting, right? I might get, even though I don't know when. Any emergency financial assistance I may qualify for, any gifts or loans from friends or family, and then maybe as a last resort, credit, right? So how am I going, what can I borrow and from whom and how in order to bridge any gaps that I have? So that is really the process. That's the process. It's the same process. As I said, I promised, it's the same process, but we're just looking at it faster and with different parameters and different options. While you're doing all of this, please acknowledge your feelings. Practice gentleness with yourself, right? Feel those coulda, shoulda, wouldas. I regret that I didn't do this. I should have done that. I wish I were here. Blah. Okay, feel that stuff. Put a box around it and seek support, right? Seek support where it's needed, whether financial, emotional, or otherwise, right? There are people out there who want to help, and they are working in many cases overtime to try to help you. They may not always get it right, but promise that they are trying, and I include myself among that as someone who works at a human services organization and as a financial wellness counselor. We are trying very, very hard. So just a list of some resources here. I know Melissa has lots more. The Actors Fund also has some, so I'll just highlight that one. The Actors Fund has a COVID-19 resource list on our website. If you go to actorsfund.org, and then you'll see, I put the direct link here, but if you see the bright red, actually more of like a burgundy wine color at the top, it says resources. And so you can click that and that will take you directly to the page as well. Before I start taking questions, and I can see that there have been many, commit, right? I'll ask you to commit to something as a next step. You've sat through, let's see, already about an hour, right, of thinking about your financial health right now. So maybe your commitment is, that is enough for today. I did what I needed to do today. I'm going to go take a break. And tomorrow I'm going to commit to this step forward. right? I'm going to commit to looking at the IRS website tomorrow, right? Could be as simple as that. I'm going to commit to actually completing my unemployment application tomorrow. I'm going to commit to reaching out to EdCap about my student loans tomorrow, right? So commit to something as a next step, and I invite you to do that right now. You can write it down. I find that when we write things down, it tends to make them more real to us. So if you can write down your commitment, do that. And that, I just invite you to stay connected, actorsfund.org. If you have success stories or failure stories or anything you've tried that has or has not worked, we are learning, we're becoming experts in real time. So you can certainly send them to me. You can send them to Melissa. She can forward them along to me. Our cell code, actorsfund.org. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm sharing articles there that are helpful. At least I hope they're helpful, and not necessarily my own, but just articles like resources for you. And then I would love to invite questions. So thank you all so much for being here. If you're only here for the content, that's all I got. If you'd like to stick around for questions, then we are here. Thank you so very much today, and be well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rebecca. That was awesome. And just a reminder, I know I said this earlier, we have been recording this part 2, and we will be sending you all a link so that you have all of the amazing slides that Rebecca has put together and you won't miss all that information. So know that that will be coming to you. I also want to thank everybody. There was a lot of really great discussion happening in the chat, especially folks from similar states that were helping each other out. So that's great. I tried to capture as many questions as I could. There was kind of a flurry of activity there. So I tried to pull some of the questions that I think will appeal to everyone. You have to choose. So sorry, a few more are coming in. So Rebecca, I guess the first one is, are there resources for caregivers? It's a difficult time for me to apply for a job as a caregiver for my mom. Is there anything out there for caregivers?
Sorry, anything out there as far as what? As far as financial assistance?
For support specifically for caregivers, do you know?
I'm hoping I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I believe so. I know the Actors Fund has a lot of programs and services, and one of them that they were offering, and I believe is still being offered, is support for caregivers, and that is more of the tapping into resources as well as the mental and emotional support as a caregiver. All of the other traditional things that I mentioned here would also and should also apply to you as a caregiver. And the if you were working, then I would look into the paid family leave and sick leave as well. If you were working and you're caregiving, then unemployment still applies to you. So it used to be you had to say, you know, I'm not, I am available to work, and if you're caregiving, you're not. But unemployment has been expanded. So part of the PUA, the only one I mentioned was for independent contractors, but PUA is also inclusive of those who cannot work due to COVID, however that may look. So if you can't work due to COVID because you're taking care of somebody, then that may certainly, that should apply to you as well. So definitely a couple of resources there, and the Actors Fund.
Amazing. Could you go back? Is it possible to go back to the slide with the links? We've seen a couple people are asking for it. Great.
Cool. There you go.
Choose a state to apply for. Okay, back to this. This is question, if you owe taxes, if you're paying off taxes from a previous year, will this stimulus go towards the remaining taxes owed?
No, it is not. So the stimulus, free and clear. You get that money. They want you to actually put it, the stimulus, that's air quotes version, the air quotes version of that stimulus is designed to put it back into the economy, right? So they don't want to take it to pay the IRS. That's actually designed to help you go spend it, right? I'm not saying that that's what you should do. That was not my advice to you. I'm not sure that that's what everybody is going to do. But the idea behind the stimulus payments is to put it back in the economy. So no, the IRS is not garnishing that for any back taxes. So you'd owe that separately from the stimulus payment.
Okay, great, thanks. Does it back to the? I have a question that says, does it backdate to the time you became unemployed or the time you filed your claim? I don't have the context for that.
I think, if I understand it correctly, that the question is for getting unemployment. Yeah. I'm assuming, right? That would be my assumption. And if that's the case, it is the date that you self-report that you lost your job, right? That you stopped working, and not the date that you file.
Great. Will those on EDD disability also receive the additional $600 extension?
I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did, but that one stumps me. I do not know. I would recommend Googling that and see if there's a resource out there. And if you can't find that, or if you're like, I just want someone to tell that to me, then CSS may be a good resource for you, the Community Service Society, because they have a financial coaching core and somebody who's working there to address unemployment questions. I feel like that's one that wouldn't necessarily be covered by like the flowcharts on the DOL's website, but maybe it is. So I don't know, but I would suspect that the answer is findable.
Awesome. Do you apply for just UI or PUA, or can you apply for both if you have both of a W-2 and a 1099?
My understanding, and I need to go through this again, but my understanding is that you apply for both at the same time, but you have to be denied W-2 in some form to get the PUA. But what I don't know, and what I want to know, what I want to know from you, and maybe you're supporting each other and sharing with each other, is if you are not denied the W-2 and you get the you get the PUA also. My understanding is it should be income replacement, so you should be able to get both. Either way, you would get the $600.
Okay, great. Somebody has a question. They said their son is a minor. They live in Rhode Island, but he worked in New York City, Massachusetts, got Rhode Island residuals. Rhode Island is saying he isn't eligible. What should they do?
If you can apply in another state, and I can understand that perhaps they're not seeing residuals as earned income, right, as wages for purposes. So a couple of things you could do. And again, this is also a good question for CSS because they could look at more of the details about your, or any of the other resources I mentioned, Vols or Arnold and Porter, that they can look at the totality of your situation and maybe give you better advice. So what I'm about to say is like, just to know some more questions that you could ask. So one is that they may not be considering the residuals as earned income because it's not like trading hours for dollars anymore, right? It's work that you've already done in the past. So I could understand if that's the case, like why they may be thinking of it that way. But if you earn money in other states, then you can apply. You should be able to apply for unemployment in any of the states in which you do have earnings. Although now I'm saying this out loud, wait a second, but you said the son was a minor, right? Son was a minor. That may be the problem too, right? So that may be the issue also. So a couple of things I could see being a problem. The minor issue and the fact that the earned income wasn't wages or like working income, but I don't know which is the issue. I don't know which is the reason or if it's both. So this is now generally, but not addressing the question because this might be the third problem being addressed, that you can apply for unemployment in any of the states in which you've worked, and it should aggregate the income from all the states. So if Rhode Island's like, no, you didn't earn enough here, maybe you earned enough in Connecticut or you earned enough in New York, or I remember the other states that you said, if you earned enough in another state, then you can apply in that state. But if you don't make the minimum, right, to get any kind of unemployment, then you may still get PUA, you may still get the $600, the PUC.
Great. Can you talk about 401k withdrawal through the CARES Act?
I can. Well, yes. Very generally, and then I'm going to share my advice. So very generally, 401ks, there are not supposed to be penalties they've modified at least the penalties for early withdrawals and increased the amount that you can withdraw from a 401k early. However, I say like, but, and this is a big but because I like big buts and I cannot lie. This is a big but with this, that I really try to discourage people from taking money from retirement accounts because there are other avenues available right now. And if you were my client, whoever asked this question, if you were my client or if it was a number of people, if you were my clients, we'd be sitting down. I would want to know what that money was for. Since I can't ask you that, ask yourself, what is this money for, right? Why would I want to take money out of my 401k? And maybe this was just a general question. They're like, I don't, but for anybody who is considering it, why do you want to take the money out of the 401k? Perhaps the money would be better left there, right? If you're thinking about taking money out of a 401k to pay off debt, no, right? And I hate to give hard and fast advice, but like that's no, 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 because we don't know what's going to happen with debt. We know some things are already happening with debt. So even right now, if you take money from a retirement account, well, right now, if you take money from a retirement account to pay off debt, and then ultimately you wind up having to declare bankruptcy, and I'm sorry to scare people by using the scary B word, but if that happens, right, and it won't, but if it does, right, if it happens that you declare bankruptcy, unfortunately, you have used money that would otherwise have been protected. Retirement assets are protected in the event of bankruptcy, so no one's touching those. You are putting your future self at a disadvantage by reducing the amount that's in there. So I really, 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 again, with no specifics from this person, I sort of went off and answered a question that wasn't even asked because I'm afraid of why that question's being asked. I really caution you against touching retirement assets in any capacity for immediate needs, right? Because they're there for you and they're protected. That's my unpleasant face and my thoughts about that. But yes, so they did expand some of the things you can do, but it's almost like I wish that you didn't know that. Like, so like I wish you didn't.
Is there any deduction or conflict with any of the programs that you mentioned and Social Security payment?
Oh my gosh. So that is a really good question too. I, again, only know enough to be dangerous about this also. Understanding is that you still get the stimulus money if you are not required to file a tax return for various reasons, and there are people who are not required to file. Then you need to go to the IRS website and go to the link that I shared, and then one of the things will tell you what to do next. But basically, there's a portal for non-filers, and you have to not be required to file in order to use this. So it's not like, oh, I didn't file yet, so I'll just use this. No, no, no. It's for people who are not required to file a tax return, and then you can enter your payment information because you do still get that. As far as other things, I don't believe, and again, I am not sure, so I want to know if somebody else knows. I do not believe you are disqualified from getting unemployment just because you're collecting Social Security. I think you can have both. So that should still apply. Emergency financial assistance, it would just be factored in. Student loans should be no impact. I'm trying to think what else could be impacted. I don't think so, but that is a really interesting question, and this is where I could become an expert if somebody else tells me that they know of something. I don't think so, but I'm not sure, and I would love to know if somebody else knows.
Yeah, for sure. Great. And just so everyone knows, I have 3 more questions that I pulled. I think that the other questions have been answered by other people, but now's your moment to, if I didn't get your question answered, and that it would be good for the whole group, please do take that time now to put it in the chat because I want to make sure we get it answered. Okay, so here's another question. This sounds like a philosophical. What if you have a roommate and they aren't paying? That doesn't help me with what I owe.
Oh boy. Okay, I'm writing that down because I want to say something else too. Okay, well, so on the practical side, if you try to file a new lawsuit right now, you cannot. So if you were thinking about suing your roommate, that is not an option. Also evictions, right? So you can't get someone kicked out of their place. So if your roommate just sucks, basically, as far as I am aware, there is no legal recourse right now for that. From a wellness perspective, oh, again, it's hard to say that. Well, it's hard to say this because I don't know the situation. So I don't want to advocate for everyone has their own burdens to bear, and, recognize that somebody may not, may be embarrassed about not being able to pay, but not able to communicate that effectively, or there's some other trigger that's going on, right? That they're just not able to communicate about why they can't, and that is causing a problem. Maybe they have another issue going on that it needs to be addressed. They may just not have the money, which is very likely right now. So as far as what you can do legally, not much at the moment. As far as what you can do philosophically, oh, this is such an awful thing to say because I don't know like your situation, and it really is possible your roommate just is a horrible person.
No.
But practice gentleness, practice that understanding and gentleness to the best of your ability, and whatever the situation that you're in that has you paying for things and assuming those responsibilities. If you can't get that to continue, if you can't get that to stop, I should say, right? If you're still on the hook for these things that this person is kind of dragging you down financially, then you need to look to the plan B, right? Because if you're on the hook and they're dragging you down, then what can you do, right, financially to make sure that you don't hit the bottom? This again, feels like something that we could like coach for a long time. It's tough, right? If it's wonderful if you're living with somebody that you just get along with and everything's great and it's just more family time and like, oh my gosh, we're bonding, like, right? But if you're not, this is a really, really tough time. It is a really tough time. For a lot of reasons. I do want to share, this is more of like a pivot from that question, but sort of related. And I do want to share this also. So this presentation that you saw, this is not the only time that you'll be able to see it. So you'll have the video, and I do a version of this right now it's continuing on. So every Friday with the Actors Fund from 10:30 to 11:30, 12. So about the same time frame on Fridays. So if you either want to hear this information again, and would like to chat with me, that is where I will be hanging out. The groups are large there so far too, but not as large as this right now. So you may have more of a chance of interacting with me and with each other. So that's, Melissa, what you just shared is so cool. That's been happening at the Actors Fund as well. It's just and other organizations, it's a wonderful thing to see how if we create the space, you can support each other and share these resources with each other. And so definitely encourage you to keep doing that. And for the roommate situation, maybe just some support in that way for you may be really helpful, because I'm sure you're also not the only one who's experiencing that. And I see we have a cat appearance.
Yeah.
So definitely,
he wants dinner.
I just want to tell you, I'm so sorry. I see you. I feel you. That is awful. And I hope that it gets better. I really do. Oh, I'm sorry.
Some people still need more clarification, because I think this is tricky to understand. Yeah. If you're a blend of a W-2 and a 1099, do you do both the UI and the PUA, or is it a risk to apply for the UI?
No, it is not a risk. Yes, you apply. Yes, you apply. And again, my understanding is that you have to apply and be denied traditional UI to be able to get PUA. So there's a maximum. So this is the gray area, right? Where it's in between. It's like, well, I don't have enough W-2 to get me up to the max, right? So if I have W-2, so I'm extrapolating from what I think the reason behind this question. So if I have W-2 and 1099, then I want them to include the 1099 so I get as close to that 504 as possible, right? As close to the maximum, at least in New York, as possible. So my understanding is that you apply. You are not putting yourself at any risk. You apply for the W-2. It may be that you get you apply for both. You get the W-2 first, right? And then you're supposed to get a call to get additional information from you to be able to include as much as possible. So if you've applied at the W-2 and you're like, well, I didn't get that call yet, it's possible it's a yet, or it's possible that they made a mistake, right? It's possible that they're still going to do it, or it's possible that they're not. We don't know. You're kind of in a holding pattern. There's not much you can do beyond calling 500 times, right? But you should definitely not be at any risk, because PUA is designed to cover you. But W-2 is the one that's the easier one for them to do. New York has been doing W-2 unemployment income or unemployment benefits for a very long time. They know how to do that. The PUA is new. So to the extent they're supplementing, they weren't even putting it out there. They weren't even paying it out because they were waiting for more guidance. Now my understanding from what I've heard is that the PUA payments are going out, at least in some cases, and the $600 also. So here's the thing. If you apply for W-2, and traditional unemployment and the 1099 unemployment, and maybe you get neither, you still may be able to get that $600, right? If you can make a claim that you lost your job, but you're not, or you lost your wages, or you lost your income, but you're not eligible for either, you may still be able to get that $600 from the pandemic unemployment compensation. I hope that answers the question. If you still have further questions, so this is really, and I've gotten some that are very specific, and these are really important questions. So definitely, I'm very happy to be able to finally share that there are people who do this and can walk you through, right, different things that you may be able to do. And so I'll repeat that again, even though they're not on this list here. It's the Community Service Society. So I believe it's cssny.org. Then there is the law firm Arnold and Porter, where they're doing some pro bono work. I wouldn't have that as your first line of defense because it could take a while to get matched up with a pro bono attorney, but definitely a resource. And then the other one is the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking all of a sudden, the Unemployed Workers Project of Volunteers of Legal Services, so VOLS. And I'm not sure exactly of their website, but if you search for Volunteers of Legal Services Unemployment, it should pop up. And that's a form that you fill out. And I think there's also a phone number, so you can try that as well, in addition to what there is on the Department of Labor website. And so keep checking back there as often as possible.
Great. I noticed there's a lot of questions, and this is kind of New York City based, but a lot of people are wondering about any new news about renting increases. Should they sign their leases if they have a renewal coming up, or should they hold off? I mean, just this basically strategy of how to navigate leases.
Oh my gosh. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So such good questions that is not like where I focus. I don't want to give bad information. I want to share with you another resource. I know it's so annoying, but I want to share with you another resource lest I speak out of turn. So the resource is the Housing Resource Center. The Actors Fund has somebody on staff who directs a program that is all about this. And he is staying up on things the way I'm staying up on these things. So that would be a much better resource than me. I don't know. I know there's at least been talk about rent freezes. I listen to de Blasio's briefings when I can in the mornings. I haven't heard that there actually is one, but that doesn't mean there hasn't been. I haven't heard that there is. As far as what to do, specific advice about signing leases, etc., that I would not want. I was able to should on you with other things and tell you what you should do with respect to retirement accounts and debt, but with this, I wouldn't want to wade in these waters. So I would suggest reaching out to either doing some research or both, reaching out to the Housing Resource Center. And if you go to actorsfund.org and then navigate to services and programs, you should be able to find the contact. I don't have that either off the top of my head, although Melissa, I can certainly share it with you after.